welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Daniel Gray. I work with AtScale. We are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDOIQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Anish Gandhi. He's a managing director at Glassdoor. Anish, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. Yeah, I work as an analytics director at Glassdoor with around 15 years of experience in the world of engineering, analytics, information systems, and primarily focus on building the analytics platform and driving data analytics for B2B space at Glassdoor for the entire go-to-market. That includes sales, marketing, customer success. That's what I do right now.
So how should leaders think about operationalizing data governance for their organizations?
Data governance is definitely one of my favorite topics. And as you know, a lot of business functions within the organization works in silos, right? Where everybody thinks that what they think is right for their function, they just agree to make changes and all. But then it creates a lot of redundant fails, a lot of undocumented data fails, and it's just like all over the place, to be very frank. So the biggest thing is to drive that operationalized data governance is to identify the key stakeholders across different functions, form a steering committee, and try to establish a metadata of what's out there first, and go through a weekly or a bi-weekly cadence of change management process, making sure that any new things which is added, updated, or moved across different functions, we try to have less redundancy and more of reusability. That's one thing. And drive those steering committee decisions, whether we are agreeing to these changes and making sure that the metadata is updated. So we have more like a standardized metadata and standardized approach where everybody has one view of the changes happening, and the different functions are aligned as well from data governance perspective. And the best thing would be that once we have this data governance and metadata in place, and if you have a governed data sets, that can be used by several business stakeholders as well. So the concept of reusability is vital in terms of driving data governance and reducing the load on the systems and, I would say, discrepancies across different business functions.
No, yeah, that's great. I mean, we at AtScale feel exactly the same way. You really want to be working off a single pane of glass. And you want to make sure you have the right stakeholders that can approve things and you're making the right changes. And so that stings directly to my heart because that's something that we also believe very strongly in. What about data literacy and the semantic layer? Where do those factor into promoting a data-driven culture?
I think the semantic layer is the number one thing which is driving the data culture and data literacy, to be very honest. Semantic layer is the heartbeat, where you have all the standardization definitions, standardization fields, calculations, which sits on top of which connects to a BI or analytics layer. And that's where all the users, whether it's different functions, marketing, sales, finance, they all have access to this one layer with standard definitions, standard calculations. So if anybody's trying to analyze data or report data or do some custom ad hoc analysis, they use the same layer, And data literacy goes with it in terms of what's going into the semantic layer, what are the definitions, have a consistent and common definition across all the business functions, and that's what is available. So it just makes it easy, for everyone to drive it makes organization more data fluent, think in that way. So this two combination.
That's great. I couldn't have said it any better, and I'm seriously passionate about it. But no, I think it's spot on. It's hard when you have different tools that get different answers, because then you get that trust problem that you talked about earlier. Then people start building their own silos because they don't necessarily trust the data. And then when you have everybody operating off the same semantic layer, if you will, then you can start to get self-service. People can just go in and it's always great to define things one time and reuse. Awesome. Okay. And then what are some tactics that you've implemented that drive trust in data?
Oh, definitely. A lot of tactics for sure. I would say the first thing is identify some of the key stakeholders who are the recipients of your data, build a small pilot team, run through some proof of concepts before you going too big, too large and scaling out and rolling out at a broader level. And once you have that buy-in and confidence from the pilot users, and when there's a word of mouth spreading that something is coming good from data perspective, we have built out something, nothing fancy, but more robust and flexible as a POC. for the business stakeholders, identify stakeholders, and once we have the sign-on from the pilot and once we have the buy-in from there, then start doing more enablement and rolling out across the broader organization. So that is one of my biggest way in terms of how do I build trust, because you already have a smaller subset of users who have started trusting your data. And once that happens, it's easy to roll out and scale at a broader level because it's all coming from one single platform. So it doesn't matter as long as it's like more of a statistical thing where you have certain percent of the population agreeing to it. The probability of the rest of the population is also going to be high in terms of agreeing and building trust on your data. So that's how I operate.
No, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Don't try to boil the ocean, especially something as important as data to a business. Prove it out, and then I love enablement. Enable people on how to use the data and the analytics, and drive trust from day one. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then how do you define data quality?
To be very honest, I can write pretty much a book on it. But to define in a short word, I would say that any data which is consistent, which is accurate, and which is available in a timely manner to drive business decisions, to perform business analysis, and it helps to increase the data fluency across them in a consistent way, is something I would say is a high data quality. And the less time to cleanse and transform and manipulate the data, I would say the better the quality is increasing with time. Sometimes you have to do transformation, but if you're doing the same cleansing exercise again and again, that means your data is not high quality. And data quality and data governance do go in hand by hand as well, according to me. And they have to be tightly integrated to drive better data culture and strong data-driven organization behavior.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, everything that you've talked about here over the last 21 minutes is, and you can tell that you have a data quality mindset. And I think all the things that you've talked about, from governance to the people and the process and everything else, attributes right to that. And then one last question. What do you think about data and analytics self-service and its future?
That is the only way to go. Self-service is the best way, is the most cost efficient and most smartest way for organization to implement analytics. Creating a data buffet is vital, and allowing people to select what they want, how often they want, and having a push-pull mode basically is something is going to drive in future. So I think self-service analytics is here to stay. It makes life easy for everyone. It gives information on their fingertip, and that's what it is. So definitely it's here to stay. And I would put all my bets on it. That's the only way to shape up your organization successfully from data perspective.
I couldn't agree more. If you want to differentiate your business, you hire really great people, and then you give them the tools to ask questions, because a canned question, you can get good KPIs off that, but it's like, what's the next thing? What's the next nugget? How do you differentiate? You ask questions. And so, and then you have automation that can optimize all that so that, that you get answers pretty quickly. So that's awesome. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. I have seen in my career where you have a set of people supporting data requests and analytics requests. It just derails things. It just takes time, and it just basically slow down business and decision-making process, And that's what the self-service analytics drive as well. The speed, the ability to make decisions faster, and to pivot around the strategy with the quick data access. It makes it easier for businesses to strive and be more successful rather than just waiting for data forever,
Yeah, and if, like you said earlier, if you build it with scale in mind, and you build the right automation in place, then you can start onboarding more and more people. More people are asking questions, getting back trusted data, and ultimately people are making decisions based on that data.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Anish, thank you very much for joining me. And it's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise.
And, for folks out there that are listening, please visit the cdomagazine.tech for, any additional interviews.